Hi everyone, and welcome to our second in the series of Lockdown. Today we are looking at innovation and engagement. We've got two great speakers. We've got Tim, as always, who will be fielding the questions, and we have Natalie Turner, who will be taking us through the 6 I's of innovation. Let's get underway.
Thanks, David. And welcome, everybody. Welcome to, I was going to say welcome to the show, but welcome to Leaders in Lockdown. Your places look beautiful. It's nice to see you all there. I'm looking forward to today's session about innovation as well with Natalie Turner. And the guys at Team Building Asia have done a great job bringing all of this together, and we'll talk. Their whole business is about innovation as well, which is fantastic. So I think we should just get straight into it, but we are going to start with a quick breakout session where I'm going to send you all into a breakout room where you're going to speak for 3.5 minutes with a couple of other people. And in that time, there's one question to answer. And that question is, how have you been innovating over the last 3 weeks? So I've also been part of a few other things, but just before I do that, I'm just going to bring everyone back from their rooms. Let's give them notice to close their rooms in 60 seconds. So they're all going to be joining us back here. All right. So it's been, I've seen people do lots of different things. I think Friday night drinks has been an interesting thing that's been happening as well over Zoom, for example, where people have connected together. Last night I was invited to. I thought it was very innovative. It was a Cointreau night. So I was on a Cointreau night being hosted by somebody in Phuket. DJ Karl Heinz does his Saturdays. If you haven't seen that, it's called Stir Crazy Live. You can hop onto Facebook and find that on Saturday night, Stir Crazy Live, where DJ Karl Heinz gets behind the turntables and starts playing music. So we stream it to our TVs and have it pumping away, which is awesome. But yeah, we've been connecting with people in lots of different ways and lots of different innovative ways. But I just got to say, the way that teams connect from things like Cointreau night, and that's people coming together to have all Friday night drinks or whatever it is. I think things like that are very, very smart and clever to do. I think most of the people have come back into the room now. I think most of the breakout sessions have closed up. Hey, if you heard some good ideas or would like to share an idea, can you just take the next 30 seconds? In fact, if everybody could do this, take the next 30 seconds, find the chat box, click on chat and go, here's something cool that we've been doing in like one sentence. So just find that over the next 30, 45 seconds, go into chat and go, here's something innovative that we've been doing over the last few weeks, our teams have been doing. You know, to be fair, some organizations, what they will have been doing over the last few weeks is just working out how to stay alive as an organization to keep going. Other organizations might have been working out how do we keep our people without having to let people go during this time. Other organizations have been looking at how do we market and leverage the fact that a whole bunch of organizations have removed their marketing spend, which means that, you know, our opportunity in the marketing space is become a lot cheaper, or a lot more eyeballs perhaps will land on our stuff. So some people have been doing the opposite of what conventional feeling or reaction is at this moment as well. So just go in there and chuck in the chat box. Lots of people going in there. Large scale strategy drawings for clients on the home whiteboard. Very nice. Purchase. Let's see. We've got nightly high intensity impact training classes on Instagram. Very, very good. I've been very innovative with regards to my home exercise regime insofar as I've thought about it and haven't done anything. So I think I don't know if that's innovative. I do behind me. I do have my Fit desk, which is a bicycle attached to a desk. But I found it works very well as a thing to hold things. So great, virtual yoga, improving personal skills. Virtual afterworks is great. Yeah, I agree. Virtual DJing, that's Karl Heinz. Carl's on the call. Very, very cool. If you, yeah, you got to check out his events on Saturday nights on Facebook Live. Look up Stir Crazy Live, and he does a 2-hour set, and it's very, very cool. Very nice. Water cooler chat on Zoom. A water cooler chat. Very nice. Great. Well, you know what? Let's thank you for sharing that. We will collate some of those ideas and share them out in the resources page at the end. And to just go in a little bit about what the resources page actually is. It's a microsite, a little mini website that we'll be sending out after this that'll contain highlights, if not the full video, but certainly highlights. I will cut out things like this. And also any resources that our guest speaker Natalie Turner will be sharing, plus ways to get to connect with her, to connect with any of us, and also some of the ideas that people have been sharing, so that we've got a few more ideas that we can launch with our teams and with our groups as well. So without further delay, let's introduce Natalie Turner. So Natalie Turner is a speaker, author, and expert on innovation. She spent a large portion of her career in innovation in organizations, has started her own business about innovation, been running that for a number of years, has authored the book, Yes, You Can Innovate, which is really good because when I was wondering about whether I could or not, the title of the book suggested that I could. And so Natalie will be sharing with us today some ideas about the 6 I's of innovation. And I think we're just going to go straight into that. So welcome, Natalie Turner.
Thank you, Tim. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. It's fantastic to be here. And I'm innovating as well. This is the first time I have done a presentation with a green screen, so you can see behind me I have Yes, You Can Innovate, and it's actually, as a speaker and as a facilitator, it's a far more engaging way than just having your PowerPoints on your desk. But I'll tell you what, it's a huge learning curve to get there, but it's great. It's good to hear all of your inputs and the ideas that you're doing, and I think what we're really seeing right now, that innovation, our ability to create value out of new ideas, is absolutely our survival skill. So let's kick off into what we're going to be doing today. Firstly, what I'm going to do is just give you a very brief overview of why I created the 6 I's of innovation, and also a little bit about the book. Then what we're going to do is Tim and I are going to sort of interact around the 6 I's. And I believe you've all have received a sheet of paper. Hopefully you've had a chance to print it up. If not, I hope you've got a pad and a pen, and you can write down some notes as we're going through this with regards to 2 things, really. One, what about you? What do you really think your skill set is in terms of innovating? And 2, what about your team members? What types of skills do they bring to making new ideas work? So that's what we're going to do in the next 40 minutes or so together. And I hope that you find it engaging and that you leave this session together with new ideas, new perspectives, and are ready and raring to go for a little bit more innovation. Okay, Tim, shall I kick off then?
Yeah, please do. Tell us a little bit more about these 6 I's and why you invented this process, this program.
Absolutely. Okay, so when we look at a lot of innovation literature in the field, you'll see models like this. They're sort of funnel-based models, where we get loads of ideas, then we converge, and then we, take things through a gate process, and then pop, out comes something innovative. How many of you have come across these types of models? Maybe some of you have. You can put in the chat box if we all know these funnel models. They're very, very popular in product development, research and development, things which are quite tangible that maybe you want to move along a sort of linear journey. But in my experience working in the field of innovation, this is okay for some types. But for other things, what about if you're a sales director and you need to get your team to be innovating about how they innovate in sales processes? Or say you're working in a call center and you need to be thinking about different types of scripts that you need to engage your customers with. These types of models are not very good. They're a bit limited and they're not very human-centered. And innovation, or our ability to create value out of new ideas, is a people-centered process, probably the most people-centered. So that's one of the reasons that I created the model. And I'm only very briefly going to touch on this because we're going to dive into it, into each of the I's over this session. So you can see basically that we've got the 6 I's, and there's different stages around the circumference, if you like, and there's circles within circles. So we've got identify, ignite, investigate, invest, implement, improve, and right in the center we have purpose. Now you'll see with purpose, we've actually got these 2 little triangles that link each of the I's to the center of the model. Now purpose is all about why. Why are we trying to do something in the first place? So I call this a people and purpose-centered approach to innovation. And maybe now, not maybe, actually now more than ever, we need to be thinking about why we're doing things. And we need to be thinking about what the impact of our new ideas are having on the world. And you can see we've got these 2 little triangles that link purpose with the outside. And these stand for processes and culture. So if we want to really build teams that can innovate, then we need to be building both the processes that can support them, but also the cultural environment that stimulates and motivates innovation to happen across these 6 different areas. And so innovation isn't just about coming up with the idea, it's a lot more than that. And that's why I've got these 6 different areas to actually focus on. So that's just a very, very top level of the model, which we're going to dive into now. So what I did with the book, and the reason I wrote the book was that clients were saying, well, it'd be really good if we could have like a practical how-to guide, how to innovate. Give me some tools, give me some approaches, give me some perspectives, give me some cases and examples. So that's why I wrote the book, and it got Business Book of the Month, and it's been nominated for a number of awards. And the feedback that I've got is that actually it enables people, whoever they are, wherever they are, to feel they can contribute, they can engage. And innovation isn't just for the creative people or innovating around a flip chart on a Friday afternoon. Innovation is for everyone every day, and actually now more than ever. So in the book, I've got these 6 different people. They're real people, they're not caricatures. They're commercial directors, they're marketing people, they're people who work in aged care services, Facebook. They're different types of personas, if you like, that represent the different stages of innovation. So we have both stage and person. And the person embodies the skills and the mindset of each of these stages. So if you can imagine an idea is like a baton in a relay race, and you've got to pass that baton to the right person or the right skill set to take the idea forward. So that's how I'd like you to sort of see the journey map of innovation. Now within the book and within the whole of the 6 I's, I've created a whole assessment tool that can measure your innovation strengths. And we're talking about strengths here, not personality preferences. It's about skill sets. This is actually my skill set around innovation. Now, you haven't got time to do that today. So what we're going to do is just for you to be thinking about how do you contribute and how do your team members, and if you're going to communicate more effectively with them and enable to build this skill set in your team, these different types of skill sets, what are some of the things that you can do?
Great. So shall we go through what some of these? So if we go through what these 6 things are, like we start off with, I guess, identify, and you share a little bit about what is that person, what's that strength for that person, and then everybody listening can think about their teams and who might have that strength. Because is it that you want all of these strengths in your team, or does it matter that your team has missing strengths?
Absolutely. So good question, Tim. You want to have the strengths covered somewhere. But you're never going to have all the strengths in one person. We're not going to always be good at everything. But this is a developmental model. So what that means is you can develop skills. You can learn skills. It's not like personality, which is a bit more, I wouldn't say fixed because we can change, obviously. But skills can be changed. But the important thing is to know if there is a low skill set, the idea might suffer somewhere on its journey. So we need to be more aware and conscious of how we're managing the diversity of skills in a cultural environment in the team that can make the ideas work. So yeah, let's do that. Let's go through each of them, and I'll start first with identify.
All right, but just before you do, how would you differentiate between innovation and creativity? Because you'll have people will have teams, and there'll be a super creative person in the team. Let's just give they'll come up with all the ideas, and everybody else sits back quietly. How do we engage those people as well?
Absolutely. And I will go into that because obviously we're looking at 6 different elements, and creativity, which is in the ignite phase predominantly. Let's remember, creativity is different in different ways to different types of people, but there's a particular type of creativity that sparks innovation, and we'll look at that. But let's look in the context of the whole, and I think I'll answer your question as we go through.
All right, what's the first one?
So the first one is identify. Now, each of the eyes, I've given a colour. And for those of you who are visual thinkers and like colours, you'll remember these colours, probably maybe even more than the names. Blue, blue sky thinking, looking out above the horizon, blue ocean strategy. All of these associations of horizon, of a big picture, is what this stage of innovation stands for. It's about us, that ability to see beyond what we can already see, and to say, over here, something is emerging, something is changing, and therefore there's a crack, there's a discontinuity occurring for something new to emerge. So this is what we're looking at, the identify stage. So the mindset of people that is associated with this is curiosity. It's curiosity. If you think about it, people who are identifiers tend to be curious people. They like to be sort of, thinking about the possibility, the opportunity, lots of diversity and new inputs into their mind. And the profile of what they bring into the team, if you like, is about vision. It's about direction. It's about new ways of thinking. And this is very, very critical in terms of being able to stimulate innovation in that sense.
Okay.
Okay, something came up then on my screen, which wasn't mine, so I wondered if I suddenly had disappeared, but no.
No, you're still there. You're still there. We can hear you.
Okay. So that is the sort of the identify skill set, yeah, for the identify stage. So this is where, in a sense, innovation can start anywhere, but this, if we're teaching it, this is a good place to start. This and purpose. Why are we doing something? Where do we look? Where do we look? Where do we look for opportunity or for possibility?
Okay. What are some of what are some of the do's and don'ts, or some of the skills for this particular person in particular?
Yeah, so when you're thinking about, what to do with regards to how you engage these people, give them time to explore emerging trends that are orientated towards the future. So actually, right now, the identifier should be having a playtime, really, because everything is in flux. It's in change, it's in movement. And identifiers can bring enormous energy to teams because they can say, hey, it's not going to be so bad. There's all this other stuff out here that's going to emerge. So as a leader, as a manager of people that are good at this, cultivate that, stimulate their imagination with big plans, big visions, because this actually helps the skill set to come to life. Now, some of the things that you shouldn't be doing with identifiers is don't involve them in work that's too focused on maintaining current processes and systems. Unless they're identifying opportunities to make them better. Otherwise, they just get really bogged down, and the energy of this phase of innovation gets really flat. And also, don't limit their sphere of work just to the ordinary. So this is a really, really key skill set to be stimulating.
So if somebody in your team doesn't want to do the work, they could just say that I'm an identifier. So don't bog me down with that sort of stuff. I'm coming up with ideas right now.
Well, I would say that there's a lot of thinking work done in Identify, and but obviously you want to get the most out of the skill set, and you want to be seeing some outcome and some output. I think of a story back when I worked for a telco back in the UK years ago. I was hired as a pricing analyst. That was my job. So I was sitting in this little office in front of Excel spreadsheets, crunching numbers, and I'm an identifier. Do you think my motivation was high? Absolutely not. It was through the floor. Now my manager, luckily, he could see this, and he had hired me for to bring some new ideas and new thinking in, and so he changed my job to become a scout. Someone that can, go out and go to conferences, meet people, see what was happening in emerging new technologies, how mobility was changing. Hey, my motivation lifted at that point. So I think as a manager, in terms of engagement, then you need to be thinking about how to do that.
Is there a tool or something? Oh, there we are. There is a tool.
Yeah, so there's lots of tools, and I outline those in the book, but obviously you'll know your own tools too. So, but one tool I just want to briefly touch on is called the 3 horizons, and it's a known methodology as well, but it's interesting now in terms of thinking about the situation we're in, because these 3 horizons that in the past were like, oh, the future, somewhere way over there, something that we can't even see, and then let's do something a little bit different in our current environment. Let's do something now. Now it's all converged. So you can't have be thinking about it, the 3rd horizon down in the future. The 3rd horizon is here right now. Let me give you a very brief example of professional services, because that's what we're in, right? So horizon 1 right now is you take your existing product or service and you're virtualizing it, and I think a lot of us are doing that, or who are in this space. Horizon 2 could be, okay, so what's emerging is, people want to access learning and development in little bite-sized pieces. So you don't necessarily want to always be at the other end of that. So what's the opportunity for that type of learning and development and stimulus to arise? And the 3rd one could be something like, well, immersive. What's going to happen now, because we are all getting a bit screen dead. How do we step into virtual reality? How's that going to transform that opportunity space? So they're just sort of 3 examples. So think of innovating across the horizons. You can't just innovate for today. You've got to innovate for today across the 3 horizons, which is business now, adjacent business, future business, but the future business isn't down the road, it's future business now. So they're all converging, these horizons.
Okay. So what about the, I was going to ask a question, so we'll move on to investigate in just a second. But my question would be, if we're encouraging these identifiers to go, I've got all these ideas, isn't that driving the practical people mad? Where they're just like, yeah, but we need to fix this right now. We need to do this right now. Stop thinking all of this stuff. We need to focus on this, and that's causing conflict in a team.
But then, okay, so what I would say for that is get your identifier to identify opportunities across the 3 horizons. Because obviously right now you've got to keep the lights on, you've got to keep your business afloat, you've got to keep money coming in, you've got to keep your staff engaged. So you need to be identifying opportunities right now. And because that still requires quite a lot of different ways of thinking, get your identifiers to really think that through and to think about what's changing, what's emerging, where are the needs of your customers and the marketplace around that. And then get them thinking about these other things too, and make sure you're enabling time for that, because if you don't enable time for that, you'll suddenly find you're irrelevant very, very quickly. You can't just say, oh, well, I'll leave that till Christmas. No, you've got to have it running in parallel tracks across these horizons. Otherwise, you won't be around. That's what's going to happen, because we're going so fast. But I think we need to move on. Otherwise, we won't have enough time to get to the 6 eyes.
Okay, good.
So ignite. So ignite. Think of red. Think of that spark of a match, that light. This is where you get the idea. This is where, you're in the shower or something and pop out, some idea comes to you, or you're walking somewhere that isn't around your apartment and you're getting an idea. So, this is where those ideas come to you, solutions come to you. In a sense, this is what we call the creative mindset. And like I said earlier, creativity is across all of the eyes, but there's a particular type of creativity here that is really required. And you can see with the symbol, it's basically everywhere but going somewhere. It's this sort of essence of energy that brings new thinking into a team, that comes up with a new solution, hopefully for an identified opportunity and not just some random idea that isn't going to actually add any value. And I think that is often the difference, Tim, what you were asking earlier about creativity and innovation. We can have tons of creativity, loads of it, but it may not actually impact anything. It might not create any value. And if it isn't creating something valuable, whatever that might be, then it isn't innovation, it's creativity. But we need creativity and innovation to make it work. So the profile, if you like, or the skill set is about, people who are good at this. They bring novelty into a team. They bring new ideas and freshness and a sense of new possibilities. And they're in terms of their skill set, they're usually lateral thinkers. They usually have lots of different things going on. They don't tend to be able to settle very easily on one thing. They tend to jump around because that's when their brains are connecting and making new ideas. So how do we engage them? What are some of the things that you can do to engage them? Encourage them. Going back to my BT telco days, it was interesting when they actually were bringing people in, they were trying to hire people that would come up with new ideas. And then after a while, he kept going, talking about these new ideas. I was like, I can't do that. No, I can't. Oh, we tried that. Oh, no, that will never happen. No. And then after a while, the igniter spirit, the energy of the igniter just gets depleted. And a lot of people then will become very demotivated and disengaged. So talk about possibility, talk about opportunity to solve problems. And Tim, like you were saying earlier about the identifier, there's that sense that get people to ignite solutions around the horizons, the opportunities that you've identified across those horizons, and get that ignite thinking, if you like, focused on an opportunity, not just random stuff. Random stuff is good, but you need to hone it. You need to start to sort of shape it into an opportunity space.
So there's a way that we could use these stages almost to frame the context of the meeting to say, right now, we'll talk about some of the immediate things, but right now, let's go big, let's go creative, let's ignite ideas, and let's do this. And we'll talk about some of the risk mitigation and other things a little bit later, but let's just focus on this right now. So people feel that they will be heard for the other stuff a little bit later, but right now let's just allow ourselves to think more creatively. Is that what you're suggesting? So it's either a separate meeting or it's a separate stage in a meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if people know where they are in the stage of the ideas journey, then they know what is needed at that stage. And also what might be needed next. But remember, even though it's a circle, the 6 eyes, it's not like we go round and round in circles, although it does feel like that sometimes. But we're going backwards and forwards through the triangles. So you might identify an opportunity, ignite an idea, investigate it, go back to purpose, realize it's not going to achieve your purpose, go back to ignite. You're using it as a map, a thinking map for how to travel fast, to get new traction on new ideas, and to know where those ideas are in the map, if you like. So some of the things not to do with igniters is, don't sort of be dismissive of them. I think a lot of times, we've heard of the expression of pour cold water on people, or, the person starts to feel a bit deflated. Oh, I had a really good idea and nothing happened with it. So, actually adding the and rather than but. Yeah, that's a good idea, Natalie, but that's a good idea, Tim, but, well, that's a good idea, Tim, and, how about this as well? Build. Because otherwise you'll just push down the ignite skill set and you won't come up with new ideas. And then another thing not to do is to have too much routine work. Because igniters tend to laterally think, and that's where they're at their best. And that's also their skill set. They can sort of read one thing, and then later in the day, an idea that they popped in their head from something they read, they're now like integrating into their work in some way. So having that diversity is very important to this stage of innovation. Which leads on to my tool, stimulus. Stimulus can be anything. It really can be anything. It can be a random word. It can be a thought. It can be one of the ones we use a lot in creativity training, if you like, is something called parallel worlds. You know, when you take another brand and you think from their perspective. And there's a great book. I don't know if people have read it. What would Google do? You know, if you take the brand of Google, for example, and think from their perspective to your problem, your opportunity or challenge, how would they tackle it? With their resources, their brand, their perspective. And it suddenly opens up your own thinking to think outside of your own perspective. So they're the first two I's. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yep, let's do that. Yep.
Okay, so now we're into the investigate phase. And with that, my energy will change a little bit, as I'm not an investigator. But I have great investigators around me, and hopefully I have one who's on this call. Sue Bang, a shout out for you if you're on the call. Investigators are brilliant. Investigators look at what you have, and they're able to think critically about what it could do or how it could work. So they have the critical mindset. Now you can see here with the swirls, it's a very different shape. They come in, they cut through, they come in, they cut through, they cut through, they cut through. They help to hone, they help to shape, they help to test, research, prototype ideas to make sure they'll be better rather than charging off into the sunset with your idea and then realizing it's not going to work. So investigators are very, very important to the stage of innovation, but have a very different type of approach in terms of their skills. So the profile, if you like, of what they bring in is more analytical thinking, more critical thinking, more getting to the root. Criticism isn't a bad word. Criticism means to get to the root of something and to understand its components. And so this is a very different way of thinking and a different way to engage people who are really good at this skill set. So some of the things that you can do is encourage them to test ideas. They love testing. They love getting out there to test things. Now, I know right now we're a bit constrained. We can't do as much as we did in the past right now, but hey, there's so much we can. We can use, you know, obviously technologies and virtual technologies to engage. With technology now on the web for testing, you know, new services or in real time to see how people are interacting with them. Get investigators really in your context thinking through how can we test? How can we fast fail, if you like? This is where you want to build failure into the process. You want to fail here, not after you've implemented something. You want to fail here fast, iterate. And we know concepts like design thinking. Design thinking covers the first three I's of this model. Identify, ignite, investigate, identify, ignite, investigate, back, forwards, back. And you're going bouncing around these three to shape up your idea. So get your investigators and think about who they are in your team. How are you engaging them? And how are you bringing them in and really raising their profile in what you're trying to do with regards to new ideas?
I think that one's really important because otherwise the creative people could feel like they're putting a stop or, like you said, pouring cold water on their ideas all the time. And eventually these people might just sort of sit back and go, well, I'm not going to say anything because every time I say something, I kind of get this stigma of trying to stop you from progressing.
Absolutely. I have seen investigators light up when you sort of say, you know, help me on my idea, help me think it through, you're really valuable. Because a lot of the time they do feel like they're quite critical, because they are, you know, they are. And then, you know, an igniter, they, you know, if you get overly attached, now, yeah, I put this on the slide here, you know, if you get overly attached to your idea and you haven't really thought it through, or you don't know how to think it through, that you can have this sort of clash in a sense between these two phases of the innovation journey. So bringing them in, understanding that they're complementary to making an idea better is really important. And one of the toolkits that I think is pretty good for this is thinking of your selection criteria. oftentimes we don't think through, is the idea a good idea to take forwards into whatever it is we want to do next? So go back to the horizons, Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3, have different selection criteria for all the horizons. If you have a selection criteria that's the same for Horizon 3, which is going to be a higher, steeper learning curve for you, it's an area that you maybe have never done anything in before, you don't know what you're doing, and maybe it's got more resource or cost associated with it, you can't, if you would kill it dead with a Horizon 1 selection criteria, which might be, is this going to work in the next 2 weeks? You know, have I got any, you know, have I got $50 I can spend right now? Horizon 3, if you apply that criteria, then it'll never get anything Horizon 3 off the ground.
Great.
All right. So shall we go on to the next one?
Yep, let's do it.
Green. Invest. Green is often associated with money, the greenback. It's often associated with growth, sustainability. Green is often associated with go. Let's go for it. We're gonna actually start to move. So in those first 3 I's, you and I can be dancing around, Tim, coming up with some great ideas and some great opportunities and investigating them and saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. But at this stage of innovation, there's usually a lot more people involved. There's very different types of people involved, and there's a lot more risk involved because you're going to have to step out and you're going to have to make something happen. So what mindset do we need at this phase? Courage. Courage. And we all need a lot of courage right now. We need to be courageous. We need to be able to step into our courage to create new things, whatever they may be. And everybody on this call, I assume that you're great people, you're good people, you want to change the world, you want the world to be a better place. What better time than now for us to step into courage and into our voice? So the invest stage is a very, very important stage of innovation, because without it, we don't actually have any stepping in to make those new ideas work. I often see this as a very low profile. So when we do profile people, and particularly at innovation conferences and things like that, most of the time we've got a lot of identifiers and igniters in the room. Yeah, because we self-select. We like this stuff, so we tend to draw to each other. But in the invest skill, it's an area also what I call the graveyard of ideas. It's where things can just die. They just can die a death. And so this skill set really brings pragmatism. It brings that sense of influence, of often being able to persuade people to be able to go for a particular course of action. And the invest skill set, the guy that I interviewed, Thomas, in my book, he was an angel investor. He now works for a big bank in Singapore. And, his very, very different types of skills, really sort of looking at those assumptions and thinking things through and bringing in a deeper sense of clarity about whether an idea is worth backing. But at the end of the day, you still got to have courage, whether it's Horizon 1, Horizon 2 or Horizon 3, now more than ever, because we're doing stuff we haven't done before. And the past isn't serving us. We have to move. We have to create new things. So what are some of the do's then? The do's of engaging this investor skill set is be down to earth. Get a bit more pragmatism. If you're not that pragmatic, start to engage someone that is pragmatic, or talk in a pragmatic way to the investor type of skill set that you want to engage. Be realistic with your goals. One thing Thomas said that, if you ever looked at a business plan, he would cut it maybe by 50 or 70% in terms of the assumptions that were in the plan. Because we overinflate. We say, oh yeah, we're going to dominate this and take this there, and we're going to do this. And actually, we're a long way off from that. So it's a very pragmatic type of skill set here. And demonstrate how the idea is actually going to fulfill a need. I think also, particularly igniters, being one too, we can come up with loads and loads of ideas, and then we think, oh, actually, is it really going to address a need, or have I fallen in love with my own idea and I've actually got blindsided by my own idea. And that can happen a lot with igniters. And so, the invest type of skill set can really help to bring that to the fore. Now, one of the toolkits that you can use, there's lots of different toolkits, obviously, and I would tell you actually one other one, not this one, but one really, really critical one is learn how to pitch. Learn how to pitch your idea, your value proposition in just a couple of sentences, because that is a really strong influencing skill at this phase of innovation. And also bring your investors in early and don't wait to say, oh, I've done everything. I've done everything. And now, please, sir, or please, ma'am, can I have some more? Bring your investor skill set early in the journey of your innovation, of your idea, because it's not become an innovation yet. But this toolkit here, innovation impact versus resources. If you imagine a big grid, and you can divide it into 4, and one axis can be the amount of resource you might need to commit to making it happen, and the other one could be the amount of impact it would have from an innovation perspective, as in how new is it to the world, how differentiating is it, and what's the impact it's going to have on what you're doing. Take it back to the 3 horizons. What are you doing now? And map it that way, because your innovation impact will be different depending on what it is you're actually trying to create. So it's just having these different tools, and they don't have to be complicated. They're all about thinking. They're all about perspective. And if you bring people who are good at that stage, then they will obviously help you. And they'll accelerate it, or rather you than trying to do everything. Unless you're an entrepreneur all on your own, then you need to find help in some way.
Do you find at this stage sometimes we'll bring back in the identifiers or the igniters to come up with ideas to be able to deliver this in a more pragmatic, cheaper way? To go, okay, that's a great idea, but how do we do it within these constraints?
Absolutely, I think that's a really good point, Tim, because what you don't want to just say is like the identifiers have gone to sleep now, or they're off identifying another opportunity. This is all about diversity, and this is why innovating is hard, because you've got to bring in the different people at the right time in a way that it's like I'll show you our logo in a bit, but it's like a swirl. That's why I use swirls. There's energy, but you've also got to be harnessing and bringing in the right people. So absolutely, you could use the identify skill to be thinking through, and even identifying, say, what stakeholders you need to influence, or what clients do you need to engage. So it's about thinking of those things as well.
Right. So moving on, implement.
So we've got 2 more I's to look at, and implement, purple, the colour purple. Actually, historically, purple has been the hardest colour to make, I have been told. So, and purple it represents what I call the hard work of innovation. Again, you can spend time testing, you can spend time creating and identifying, but then you've got to make it work. You've got to get it out there. It's got to move into the world. It's got to start to have some sort of impact. Otherwise, we're all just having a great time having a chat and testing things. So this is all about the hard work. Now, a really important point here, and something that I found in the research for the book and in working with this with people, is a lot of implementers don't think they're innovators. A lot of implementers think they receive something that an innovative person has created and they just have to make it work. And I think it's a wrong assumption. We have to raise the importance of the implementation skill set in the innovation journey and the implementers that make stuff work. Because without their skills, it doesn't matter how creative we are, it doesn't matter how good our opportunities are, we won't innovate. And so I really want to highlight that and say how important that is to this part of the innovation journey. So the mindset, commitment, sticking at it when it's tough, when it's hard, when it's up, when it's down. Being committed to an outcome is the mindset that we need here, and often implementers are good at commitment. They're good at planning things, organizing things, structuring things, working out projects, working out how to make stuff work. And so this is a really, really important mindset. And their role is they provide discipline. And innovation is a curious thing because it combines creativity and discipline, and they're very different. You know, our creative mind needs to wander off and be lateral and be here and be there. But then we need to bring it in and we need to actually converge. Let me just go back to that mindset. Look at the swirls. The swirls are going in on each other because you've got to commit. You can't be like swirling around forever in the sky. You've got to commit the energy of the team to focus and to have that discipline. So this is a really, really core aspect. And you know, while we're all working this way, and who knows how long it's all going to go on, and life will never be the same. Let's forget that. You know, that's gone. We're now inventing the future. So what we've got to be thinking about is how do we commit? How do we get our teams to commit across the three horizons to generate ideas that are going to meet needs and open up new opportunities to transform our businesses and the world around us. So some of the do's: be action orientated. Implementers like action. They want to move into action. They want to, you know, to see something happen. A bit like the investors tend to have a bit more pragmatism about them. And they're also normally more results orientated, and they like deadlines. They like to be thinking, I'm working towards this. I'm working to try and achieve this. Have a realistic plan. You know, when you engage an implementer and say you put your plan together and they're going to say, hey, that's just not going to be feasible. So, you know, get them to help you think it through, how to plan, how to organize, how to use all these virtual tools we're now using to plan virtually and to make new projects happen. And thankfully, there's lots of innovation now happening in this space to help us to meet our needs. And I think, you know, in terms of the things not to do, don't just keep jumping in, and Igniters do this a lot. Don't just keep jumping in with a new plan or a new idea that disrupts the plan continuously, because that infuriates the implementers who are now like, they're actually implementing something and now you're going to completely sort of disrupt it. But then at the same time, and this is why it's difficult, you've got to be agile, yeah? We all talk about agile now. You know, you've got to be agile. You've got to change a plan if it's not going to work. And you don't want 5-year plans now necessarily. So you've got to be having that committed mindset in an agile environment that is able to move. But don't, a bit like the investor, don't bring the implementer in when you're ready to implement. Bring them in when you're starting something, because they'll already be thinking about, okay, well, how can we do this? Or maybe that, you know, so they know, and they can add and they can accelerate your ability to make a new idea happen. Now I've got one toolkit just to look at here. Obviously, there's all the ones out there now that we can use for implementation, like sprints and agile and things like that. But, you know, this is a very, very simple tool, and it's called results, change, people, and process. When you're looking at implementing something, write down the activities that are really going to help you get results, that you can measure. Write down the activities that you might need to design, that are, you know, they're going to have a design element or a change element, something new that you've got to engage in. Write down the activities that are all about people, whether it's with clients or customers or with your team members, but anything to do with people. And then write down all the activities that are to do with processes. Because if you're not balanced on these 4 dimensions, then you're going to fall over. Your projects will fall over, particularly if you haven't got the process ones. And for those who are high igniters, they tend to be lower in their skill set, not all the time, but a lot of the time, is my awareness of this, they're lower on that. So, so having this balance in your planning across these poles will help your implementation.
Okay, so it's like a balanced scorecard for implementers.
Yeah, absolutely. Similar
Very nice.
to that. Right, our last I, Tim.
Yep.
Improve, the color orange. If you think of Ignite with the red, you know, it's very nice and, you know, sparky. Improve is like the glow. You know, it's that sense of sort of warmth over an idea that can radiate new value. And so that's why I gave it the color orange. And the skill set associated with with improve is clever. Look at the swirl. The swirl is going out again now. It's going out again. It's been in convergence and now it's going out again because it's starting to see other ways of doing things, see improvements. We need a lot of improve right now as well. Well, we need a lot of all these things, but the improvers are such an important skill set. And again, a bit like the implementers, they don't often see themselves as innovators because they don't think, oh, maybe I'm not doing new stuff. But actually, new to you is good enough, particularly now. You know, new to us actually is quite a lot, it's a lot more radical these days because we're actually doing a lot of new things. So the improved skill set is they provide fresh perspectives on existing things. They are also usually good at optimizing things or leveraging. So they'll take an idea and say, you know what would if we did it this way, or did it over here, or did it somewhere else? They take what already exists and they can drive more value out of what already exists. And so they bring this sort of clever way of looking at things. So what should you do? How do you engage the improvers? They talk about improvement, learning, optimization, involve them, get feedback, get them getting to get feedback, and really sort of celebrating, you know, what is working and why not. But don't forget to review. It can be very common for some people who, you know, come up with ideas and then they might jump into implementation and then they're off to the next thing. You miss tons of value creation if you miss this stage of innovation, because this is where new value is often created. And don't just sort of rush off into the next thing. And so the toolkit: celebrate success and celebrate failure. You know, celebrate what's working and what's not working, and review. And don't just have this as like a project management review at the end of something. Build improvement into the mindset. Remember, there's 6 equal eyes. Bring it into the way that you work constantly. Bringing it in. How can we improve what we're doing? How can we improve what we're doing? How can we do this differently? Not just focusing on the new. So this is the balance between all the elements.
Fantastic.
So just a couple of slides to end then, Tim. So this is just a picture really of all of the eyes with their associated mindsets. And like I said earlier, with the swirls, with the logo of the 6 eyes, what do you see? When you look at this, what do you see?
It all comes together, works together to create something.
Yeah. Anything else?
It's converging into a single point. It's the number 6. It's movement. It's dynamic. It's everything you want me to say, it appears.
Absolutely. What a perfect answer. And there's another little one here that was very purposeful in the creation of this. What color is on the outside?
Blue, and there's bits missing, like falling off, I suppose.
Yeah. So the identify skill constantly needs to be pushing out.
By the way, while we've got, so just to give people an idea, as we're just finishing this up, if you've got some questions, whack them in the chat box now. We will be finishing up the core part of the presentation, but we will be sticking around for Q&A or if you'd like some discussion afterwards. But Natalie, just to throw back to you to finish up this last couple of slides before we go into that. But if anyone would like to put in some questions, we can ask them to you now, so pop them in the chat box.
Yeah. So just to recap on this, the blue is on the outside, constantly looking out. So your identifiers, if you are an identifier, this is your time right now, because there's so much shaking and changing and moving and everything else. This is a really, really exciting time. If you're a manager of an identifier, or you've got identifiers in your teammates, really get them thinking across these horizons, because wow, you can move and shape things very fast right now, because everything is open and everyone's looking for leadership. Everyone is looking for answers. So it's up to us, people that are working in this field, who are interested in this field, to help shape that and really to build it around purpose. Get people really, talking about it. Talk about the purpose of the work. It's very easy, I think, right now to get bogged down, you're feeling a bit low, or it's hard to keep the energy up sometimes. Keep coming back. What's my purpose? What's my purpose? What's our purpose? Why are we working together to achieve this? Get people thinking about that, because that connects to a deep level of essence that is inside you. So I feel my purpose is to inspire courageous action to change the world and make it a better place. That's what I live for every day of my life. Now, sometimes I'm doing mundane stuff. I think, why am I doing this? I just take a breath, go back to the purpose, and then realize why I'm doing it. So go find your own internal compass here, and also stimulate this discussion amongst your team members and find out what is their profile. So this is me, I identify, ignite, tend to jump into implement, and then I just want to get on to the next thing. Know yourself, know your skill set, because then you know where you can play to your strengths. Know other people's skill sets, so you know how to bring them in. And this can help us to get better and faster at making impact with our ideas.
And I think it's really important to also recognize where we are lowest, to either focus on, okay, either I need to place some attention in growing that, or better still, I need to surround myself with somebody who has that as a strength already, partner up with them. For a lot of people, a lot of leaders, it can be quite lonely where they are in their leadership position. So to be able to reach out and connect with networks like this, or to connect with other people in their organization where they've got those other skill sets, and partner up and share ideas in a managed way, could be really, really useful. Everybody, I'm going to throw back to you again in a second, Natalie. I'm going to launch a poll very quickly about, since the lockdown, where have you been innovating the most? So if you could just consider filling that poll in right now while Natalie's just talking about this last little bit. So there's a poll there about, since lockdown in your teams, where have you been innovating the most, whether it's adapting to new ways of working, retaining existing customers, reinventing our products and services, creating new business models, adopting new tech to improve collaboration, whether it's the question, innovating, what's that? We're just trying to keep the lights on, or something else where you can pop those in the chat if there's some other way. We'll also be sharing this with you in the results of this in the resource pack. And we'd like to connect out with everybody else to just make sure that we're helping you with any resources. And Natalie's got some additional resources as well. But Natalie, I think what you were saying there with regards to while people are filling in the poll, with regards to finding out your profile and the profile of the people in your team is really, really important, so that you know where those gaps are. And you know where either we go, look, we've got nobody implementing anything. We're coming up with great ideas, but if we're not implementing anything, we're going to pretty much have nothing to do. We're going to have nothing coming in the door. So what do you say with solopreneurs or teams where they find a big gap once they've all done the profile? What would you say to them to do?
Well, I think, the first thing is to have that awareness, particularly for people who are, working on their own. So, for example, we're a small business, there's just a few of us that work full time, but we have a network of people that we've trained and certified, in the model, that are around the world. And then we use a lot of sort of contract help, like we use Upwork a lot, for example, for helping us to design and helping us to create new things. So I think it's about thinking broadly about where you can access the skills that are missing, and also, looking at your own self and then thinking, okay, within my networks, this is why networks are so important. To be thinking, who's got that skill set? Who can I bounce this around with? Who can I bring in? So really spending some time now, in particular, to reinforce your own networks and professional groups that you belong to online. I mean, I don't know about you, but the amount of webinars that I'm now on, learning new things, but also the amount of new master classes and mastermind groups and all of these things. And even when you're having social drinks with people like Contro Hour or whatever it might be, these things are all very, very important. Don't isolate yourself. Make sure you're connecting. Yeah. Make sure you're building relationships.
Yep. So we're going to go to questions in just a second, but just for those of people who have to go and head off to their next meeting, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Natalie Turner. So thanks, Natalie, for sharing these ideas. I think they're very, very useful. We're going to get into some practical implementation part in just a second with the Q&A. we can share some of the, well, this will still be on the video, so for those of you who miss it, can pick it up in the resources pack that we do send out. We also have Tim Hammonds, who's been visually representing this entire talk in a graphic illustration like he did with our last Leaders in Lockdown session. And you can see him busily on the screen, well, somewhere on the screen, drawing. He just vanished from my screen. But thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been fascinating. So for those of you who have to leave, we will send out the resource pack. As far as the poll goes, I don't know if you guys can see the results, but I certainly can. And we've got a 72% of people saying since the lockdown, the most innovation has been in adapting to new ways of working, which makes a lot of sense because we're all thrown in online. But and then adopting new technologies to improve collaboration has also been a really high one. 63% of people saying that they're doing that as well. Interestingly enough, retaining existing customers is one of the lowest ones, and keeping the lights on is one of the lowest ones. So people are really, businesses are surviving and sustaining based on the people here anyway. It's just about, but reinvention is certainly something that's coming in there as well, which is quite interesting. But we share the results of that poll in the resources pack as well. Natalie, there was a question that we had from Honey, where she asked, for those of us who are self-employed, you end up being the identifier, the igniter, the implementer, all simultaneously. And whether or not they're self-employed or running a very small business where they feel like they have to do that, or they're part of a huge business, but they're in a specialist position where they feel like they're doing all of these things. So it could actually apply to lots of different people and lots of different styles of business and industry. She asks, how do you balance between all the creative ideas and also get them implemented one by one rather than just jumping to the next idea and before implementing the current one?
Absolutely, that's a really good question, and I think, you know, if you go back to purpose, as in what's the purpose of what you're trying to achieve and why, that can help give you focus and clarity. Because a lot of the time, our ideas that we generate are, you know, they're good ideas, but they might not necessarily be addressing or fulfilling the purpose that you're really trying to do. So you can use things like the selection criteria. Use your own purpose statements to get clarity on prioritization. And I would say don't lose the ideas that you're not prioritizing. Just have a system to organize them so that and organize them across the 6 I's, because the ideas travel and they'll be moving backwards and forwards. So one of the things here you can do is to make sure that you're managing innovation. You're managing the process of innovating just as you'd manage anything in your work or in your business. And you can do this at the individual level, you can do it at the team level, you can do it at the corporate level. And we've created a whole IT system that helps organizations to manage across the 6 I's and give them visibility on where, their ideas are. So, think of it that way, to try to apply some structure, but starting always from the purpose of what you're really trying to achieve.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. And another sort of idea from a Case, which I really quite liked, Case Everett, said more diversity of people in a team makes it stronger, but he's talking about warning, I guess, against groupthink, where everybody's sort of agreeing about the same way of looking at things, and create a safe environment, suggesting to leaders to create a safe environment for different points of view. And perhaps for some of those quieter points of view in the team to be heard. And this is a really nice, if you follow the 6 I's in a sense, in a team meeting discussion or in 6 separate meetings with the same people possibly, it allows each of the voices to get the appropriate level of spotlight that I think it deserves, because otherwise we can spend a lot of time, well, at least leaders who are igniters and identifiers can spend a lot of time, coming up with all of these ideas, and the implementers are getting very, very frustrated. Or conversely, leaders with P&Ls can get and a lot of pressure on delivering real solutions very, very quickly. Can shut down some of the big ideas that are going to set them up for that third horizon, but because of that pressure to do things now. So I think really being mindful of setting up meetings here or structuring your meetings with that appropriate level of spotlight will bring full color. What do you think about that? What?
I like that. I think, one of the things I talk about quite a lot is the democratization of the ability to innovate across diverse skills. And I think for too long, innovation has been sort of, in the labs or in the R&D center or the scientists or, the digital technologists or whatever. And also the people that contribute to really making the ideas work, the implementers and improvers, have not actually had much of a voice, and have not seen their contribution as valued and innovative. As in, if we don't have these different diverse perspectives and skills harnessed together, then our ability to make new ideas work, no matter how good they are, is going to be limited. So absolutely, it's really about harnessing that and making sure that there is the diversity of when the idea needs. And another thing I say is that, think about what does the idea need, not what do you need in that sense. What does the idea need? Does the idea need investigating right now?
Yeah.
Even if you're Ignite or something else, you can think, well, actually, that's what the idea needs. Therefore, I need to rein in my Ignite. Because you can overplay your strengths. You can keep igniting and igniting and igniting and igniting, and you never get anything done. So absolutely, you need to say, what does the idea need? And therefore, what should I put? Who can help me with that if I'm not like that? Or how do I improve my skills if I'm on my own trying to do this?
Yeah. I mean, a really great example. Before I go to that really great example, let me ask the question, because when people go, okay, what can I do next? What are my next steps? What can I do next? Some people will go, well, let's create whether it's virtual or physical, let's create a suggestion box. And I've seen that happen before, and it becomes an interesting thing at the beginning, and then something that is thrown away later because nobody uses it. What's your warning against the suggestion box, and what can we do a little bit better? What can our next steps be?
Yeah, I would warn against the suggestion box. I think everyone sort of sees it as the black hole. It's sort of, you put your little idea in and never to be seen again. I think this goes back to innovation management. And I think where I would start, if I'm starting with a blank sheet, I would start with purpose. I'd get the team together, just reinvigorate what are we trying to do here with what are all the different things that are on our plate. And then I would look at identify. I would look at the stage of identify. Where are our opportunities across the three horizons? I would get to understand who's who in the team. What is the diversity of the skill sets that you've got, so you know how to best manage, harness, and create that environment for people. And then you can start to sort of, use the 6 I's as a thinking tool, as an innovation management process, if you like, to help you manage your ideas across the three horizons and get a plan together around it. Get an implementer in your team to manage the plan. You can contact us if you want some information on that, but just get some management around it. Don't leave it to chance. And I think that could happen a lot right now, because we are so busy just sort of paddling and, doggy paddle, in the water or kicking water. We do need to think quite seriously about how we have these parallel tracks of where our ideas and how we can manage them across the three horizons to
Brilliant.
ensure our.
Thank you. Tim Hammonds, do you have something you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Yeah.
Very nice. So
Nice.
talk us through it.
Well, I'm just trying to, when we're doing this, it's listening and capturing your model, but also the story. We're more engaged by stories, and that helps bring these models to life and these learning tools to life. So I'm listening and capturing the model, but also some of the story, hopefully some of the story around it, so to present this story and also reinforce the key learnings and the value that's inherent in your model. So that's what we're doing here in this visual summary for you and for the guests. Yeah.
Very nice. So just to let everybody know, we will be sharing Tim's finished version of this in our resources pack that we send out. So after the call, we will be sharing out a link to a microsite, a website, which has got information about how to connect more with Natalie, how to do the profile if you want to do the profile for yourself and your team. Tim's picture here as well, and a lot of other resources that we're going to be sharing with you as well. So I'm going to stop sharing that, Tim, and come back to the main screen. Natalie, any final thoughts before I hand over to David Simpson to close us up?
Wow, I mean, I hope you've enjoyed this session. I've enjoyed it, and I must say, I've really enjoyed standing in front of a green screen with my virtual backgrounds, and having the energy and the freedom to use my voice and my body in presenting. So I hope that you've enjoyed that, because it's been great as a speaker to do that rather than just sitting down on a chair. But I would just say, last words. Now is the time. For those of us who have been in this field of innovation, plugging away, trying to get people to think about it, now is the time, more than ever, for us to step into our courage, find the area we want to align our purpose to, and get going on it, full blast. Now is the time, because we have to offer our leadership, our skills, to make this world a better place, to make it a more sustainable place to live in, and to make it a kinder, more gentler, more beautiful earth. So I would say go for it. And if this helps you on your journey, I have achieved my purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalie Turner. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to listen to you present in such an innovative way. So it was very, very nicely done with the green screen and the slides behind you. Very, very well done. I'm going to pretty much, I'm very, very conscious of time, so I'm going to hand over to David Simpson to close us out. But for me, a big thank you to Natalie Turner, a reminder to everybody that you are going to get resources at the end of this, including the slightly edited version of the video, some of the poll results, the chats, links to Natalie's stuff, a bigger resource pack, and ways to connect with Natalie, her team, her book, us, Team Building Asia, and other things will all be in that website, web link, and we will be having another session. We look forward to the next Leaders in Lockdown. But from Natalie Turner and myself, thank you very much. I'm going to hand back to David Simpson of Team Building Asia. David.
So some great outputs there. Thank you to Tim. Thank you for Natalie for running an excellent session. Just to let you know that as a result of this, you've all made an impact through the Ticket for Good. We've actually had 20 meals that are going to aid hungry families in quarantine in the Philippines. We also have 20 trees that have been planted to support reforestation in Borneo. And finally, 20 girls are safe for a day in Cambodia through Free to Shine. Do join us for our next series in lockdown. This will be our third in the series of lockdown, coming to you soon.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody. And on that note, we're going to end the session. Thanks very much for joining us, and we will look forward to seeing you at the next Leaders in Lockdown. Hey, just before you do click off, can we just get a big wave, and I'll just take a quick screenshot. So everybody just do a quick wave. If your video's off, turn your video on in the next 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, waving. And let me just move to the next screen. Waving, keep waving, because you might not be on the screen that I just took a photo of, which is a bit weird, but never mind. And keep waving. You've been waving for hours. Wave and done. Thank you very much. See you guys.